You think cheating is sudden, a decision made in a moment, a single night that comes out of nowhere and destroys everything. That is the story that is easiest to believe because it makes the betrayal feel like an external event, something that happened to the relationship rather than something that developed inside it over time. It is almost never sudden. It starts with shifts, small ones, a tone that is slightly different, an energy that has changed in a way you cannot quite name, responses that are shorter than they used to be, a warmth that was automatic becoming occasional. You notice something. You cannot articulate it clearly. You tell yourself that you are being paranoid. You are probably not being paranoid. When something feels off, it usually is. The felt sense that something has changed in a relationship is one of the most reliable signals available, not because it is always evidence of an infidelity, but because it is almost always evidence of something, a shift in investment, a change in emotional orientation, a reorientation of attention that has not yet been named or addressed. Today, you are going to learn 6 behavioral signs that often appear when a relationship is in serious trouble and what they actually mean. Not to make you suspicious, to make you clear. Watch the patterns. Here is the principle that reframes everything else. People rarely announce disconnection. They drift first. The emotional withdrawal that precedes a major relational shift, whether that shift is infidelity, the decision to leave, or simply the gradual collapse of genuine investment, is almost never declared. It is expressed through behavior, through the small daily choices about where attention goes, how warmth is distributed, what gets prioritized, and what gets quietly deprioritized. The confession, if it ever comes, comes last. The behavioral signals come first, always. Emotional detachment is the first expression of this drift. Expressed genuine investment. Has expressed genuine investment, has thinned. Interactions that used to feel like real contact begin to feel like surface exchanges. You are talking, you are not connecting, and the gap between the two is the space in which the drift is happening. Cognitive distancing follows. She is thinking about the relationship differently, assessing it from a position that has moved outside it rather than from within it. The things that used to matter to her about the two of you together are receiving less cognitive and emotional space. Other things are receiving more. You may not be able to identify what those other things are, but you can feel the reorientation in the quality of her attention when she is with you. Reduced investment is the behavioral expression of both. The small daily choices that express genuine care, the text to check in, the spontaneous warmth, the remembered detail, the genuine curiosity about your day, begin to diminish. Not dramatically, incrementally. Each reduction individually seeming like nothing. The pattern of reductions revealing something significant. Emotional withdrawal precedes major decisions. This is the rule. By the time the decision is visible, by the time there is an event, a confession, a confrontation, the emotional withdrawal has already been happening for some time. The decision was made internally long before it was expressed externally, and the signs of that internal process are always visible in the behavior if you are paying the right kind of attention. Now, the psychological layer that makes the 6 signs more legible. Attraction fluctuates. Investment fluctuates. These are not stable qualities that, once established, remain constant without ongoing maintenance. They require inputs. They respond to circumstances. They are alive, which means they can decline as well as grow. The critical variable is not whether attraction or investment fluctuates. It always does. But where the fluctuation is moving and whether the direction has become consistent. When emotional investment moves elsewhere, attention follows. This is the fundamental mechanism behind all 6 signs. The investment does not disappear, it redirects. It goes somewhere, toward another person, toward a fantasy of a different life, toward the process of emotionally separating from the current relationship. And wherever the investment goes, the attention goes with it. The result is a specific quality of absence. Not the absence of physical presence, but the absence of genuine attention. That is detectable in the behavioral signals we are about to describe. Verbal reassurance versus behavioral consistency. That is the binary. The words of a commitment, the I love you, the you are overreacting, the nothing is going on, are easy to produce. They can be produced strategically in response to signs of concern, specifically to prevent further investigation. The behavioral patterns are harder to manage. They express the genuine state of investment, even when the words are designed to conceal it. Watch behavior, not promises. This is the principle. And the 6 signs are all behavioral. Now the 6 signs. Sign number 1, sudden emotional distance. The most immediate and most consistently present signal is a change in the quality of her emotional engagement with you. Not a gradual evolution, a shift, something that represents a departure from an established baseline rather than a slow drift. Short responses are the most visible expression. Conversations that used to develop, that used to go somewhere, that used to produce genuine exchange, are now resolved in minimal exchanges. Questions that used to generate real answers get functional replies. The conversational investment that expressed genuine interest in maintaining connection with you has reduced. She is answering, she is not engaging. Reduced affection is the physical dimension, the spontaneous touch, the easy physical closeness, the warmth that expressed itself through ordinary physical presence, less initiated, less warm, less present in the ordinary moments where it used to appear naturally. Not entirely absent, diminished, and the diminishment is consistent rather than episodic. Less curiosity about you is perhaps the most telling element. Early in a genuine relationship, both partners are genuinely curious about each other, about what the other is thinking, feeling, experiencing, building. The expression of that curiosity, the questions, the follow-up, the genuine attention to the answers, is one of the clearest behavioral expressions of real investment. When the curiosity diminishes, when she stops asking, stops following up, stops engaging with the details of your life, the investment it expressed has diminished with it. The contrast that matters is between busy and disengaged. A person who is genuinely busy, who is under real pressure from work, from family, from external demands on their time and energy, is still emotionally present in the moments they have available. The engagement, when it occurs, is genuine. The disengaged person is different. The moments of availability are there. The genuine presence is not. Distance without explanation is data. That is the rule, and it is the kind of data worth taking seriously. Sign number 2, increased secrecy. Privacy and secrecy are different things. The distinction is important because conflating them produces both false positives, treating ordinary privacy as evidence of something sinister, and missed signals, because genuine secrecy is dismissed as ordinary privacy. The phone guarded is the most frequently noticed signal, not the ordinary phone management of a person who simply does not leave their device lying around. The specific behavioral change of a person who has become newly protective of a device that was previously accessible. The screen turned away when you approach. the phone taken into the bathroom with a frequency that is new, the notification glance that is followed by a subtle shift in posture, the defensive tone when ordinary questions are asked about the phone or about communication is the behavioral tell. A person who has nothing to conceal responds to ordinary questions with ordinary answers. The person who has something to conceal responds to ordinary questions with a disproportionate edge, irritation, deflection. The counter accusation that your question implies a distrust she finds offensive. The defensiveness is not about the question. It is about what the question might uncover. Privacy is healthy. Secrecy feels different. This is the distinction. Privacy is the ordinary maintenance of personal space, of communications and interior life that simply are not shared, without any specific investment in ensuring they remain unobserved. Secrecy is active. It is the management of information, the specific effort to ensure that certain content remains inaccessible. You can feel the difference. Transparency versus protection mode. The shift from one to the other, when it is observable, is a significant signal. Sign number 3, irritation without cause. Guilt is a psychologically uncomfortable state. It creates internal pressure, a chronic dissonance between how a person is behaving and how they believe they should behave. And one of the most consistent ways that guilt is managed is through its externalization. The discomfort is converted into irritation directed outward, at the partner, at the relationship, at the ordinary friction of daily life that suddenly seems more grating than it did before. Picking fights over things that previously did not constitute a problem is one expression of this. Small irritants that were previously tolerated become sources of disproportionate conflict. The argument that has been manufactured that is not really about what it appears to be about creates a kind of emotional distance that serves a specific function. It makes the relationship feel more troubled than it actually is. And when the relationship feels more troubled, the guilt associated with the behavior that is creating the actual problem is easier to rationalize. Overreacting to neutral events is the emotional expression of the same mechanism. The response to ordinary circumstances is larger than the circumstances warrant. Frustration where frustration is not particularly appropriate. Coldness where warmth would be the natural response. The emotional temperature of the interactions has shifted in a way that does not have an obvious external cause, because the cause is internal, and internal causes produce external expressions that seem disproportionate to the visible situation. Rewriting history is the more sophisticated expression of this pattern. The revisiting of old conflicts, the sudden discovery of grievances that were previously considered resolved, the reinterpretation of past events in ways that reframe the relationship as more troubled than the shared understanding of it. This serves the function of building a narrative that justifies the current behavior. If the relationship has always had these problems, if you have always had these flaws, if the dissatisfaction has always been this deep, then the current behavior is not a betrayal. It is a natural response to a chronic problem. Guilt often manifests as projection. This is the psychological principle. The discomfort of the guilt is managed by converting it into legitimate grievance against the partner. Watch for the shift from talking about the present to reinterpreting the past. Sign number 4, validation seeking outside the relationship. The dynamic we described in the previous script applies here with full force. When emotional connection inside the relationship declines, the need for validation, for the felt sense of being desirable, interesting, and genuinely attended to, does not decline with it. It redirects. Flirty online behavior that is new or has intensified is one behavioral expression. The social media presence that has become more curated, more frequent, more oriented toward an external audience. The engagement with other men's attention online that has a quality of genuine investment in securing and maintaining that attention. The posting that is designed to generate a specific kind of response and that clearly finds satisfaction in receiving it. Attention patterns in physical social contexts are the offline expression, a new or intensified investment in environments where male attention is available. Social events attended with a specific quality of engagement that is different from her ordinary social behavior. The way she responds to attention from other men in shared social contexts, whether she deflects it, as a woman who is genuinely committed tends to do automatically, or whether she receives it with a warmth that is more than ordinary social reciprocity. Social media shifts are the digital signal. Changes in posting frequency, in the nature of the content, in the quality of engagement with specific people whose attention seems to be specifically valued. External validation spikes when internal connection drops. This is the statement. The spike in external validation seeking is not random. It is compensatory. It is the behavioral expression of a deficit, a need that is not being met inside the relationship being sourced from outside it. Sign number 5, schedule inconsistencies. The routines and patterns of ordinary life are, in most established relationships, reasonably predictable. The partner knows approximately where the other person is at most times, not because of surveillance, but because of the ordinary mutual transparency of a shared life. When the schedule changes, when new patterns emerge that disrupt the established predictability, the change itself is worth noting. New unexplained routines are the primary signal, not the ordinary schedule fluctuations of a busy life. The specific emergence of new recurring patterns that were not previously present and that are not accompanied by the kind of natural explanation that ordinary schedule changes typically come with. She is consistently somewhere new, consistently unavailable at times that were previously available, consistently delayed in ways that were not previously characteristic. Changing availability without clear explanation is the relational expression. The times when she was reliably reachable are now times when she is not. The calls that go unanswered in periods that were previously open. The texts that receive delayed responses during time frames when response was previously prompt. These changes in isolation have innocent explanations. In combination, as a consistent pattern, they suggest that the schedule has been reorganized around something that she has not disclosed. Defensive responses to ordinary questions about her whereabouts are the emotional tell. A question about what she did this evening should produce an answer. The question that produces irritation, that generates the response that your curiosity implies an inappropriate level of control or suspicion, is a question that touched something she was not prepared to address neutrally. Patterns matter more than isolated events. One late evening has 100 innocent explanations. A consistent pattern of new unavailability has fewer. Sign number 6, energy shift around you. This is the most difficult sign to describe precisely because it is the most felt rather than the most observable. But it is real, and the people who have experienced it describe it with remarkable consistency. Less excitement in your shared interactions. The quality of her engagement when she is with you has changed. The interactions that previously had a specific quality of aliveness, of genuine pleasure in each other's company, have become flatter. She is present. She is not particularly enjoying being present. The energy that expressed genuine gladness at being with you has diminished, not in every moment, as a consistent new baseline. Less physical connection is the somatic expression of the same shift. Physical intimacy, not just sex, but the ordinary physical warmth of a relationship, the easy comfort of physical proximity, has become less frequent, less initiated, less genuinely warm when it does occur. The physical dimension of the relationship reflects the emotional one. And when the emotional investment has reoriented, the physical expression of it reorients as well. Emotional flatness around you is the overall quality of the shift. She's with you, but not quite there. The engagement is functional rather than genuine. The interactions accomplish the surface requirements of a relationship: conversation, shared time, ordinary mutual acknowledgement. Without the genuine presence that made those interactions feel like actual connection. Comfort versus detachment, that is the binary. Comfort is warm, detachment is neutral, and the shift from one to the other is one of the clearest signals available that something significant has changed. Energy rarely lies. The felt sense of being with someone who is genuinely glad to be with you is distinct from the felt sense of being with someone who is going through the motions. Trust that distinction. Now, the dynamic that ties all six signs together. When attraction drops, a cascade follows. Respect drops with it. The person who is no longer genuinely attracted to their partner begins to treat them with less of the care and consideration that genuine regard produces. The small courtesies, the genuine attentiveness, the treatment that reflects that the other person's experience matters, all of these decline because the emotional investment that motivated them has declined. Effort drops next. The investment of time, energy, and attention that a relationship requires to maintain its quality stops feeling worth the cost when the genuine motivation for it has diminished. The relationship begins to be maintained at the minimum level, the level of effort required to prevent an immediate confrontation, rather than the level that sustains genuine connection. Transparency drops last. By the time transparency has declined, by the time the person is actively managing information, creating false impressions, maintaining the surface form of commitment while the substance has already redirected, the process is well advanced. The transparency is the last thing to go because it is the most costly to lose. Losing it means acknowledging implicitly that there is something to conceal. Most people avoid that acknowledgement as long as possible. Most men notice too late because they rationalize. This is the statement. The mind that loves someone has a strong motivation to interpret ambiguous signals charitably, to find the innocent explanation, to accept the reassurance, to choose the reading of the evidence that allows the relationship to continue undisturbed. This is not stupidity. It is the natural function of attachment, but it is costly because while the rationalization is ongoing, the pattern is developing. And by the time the rationalization becomes unsustainable, the pattern is fully established. Now, the framework for responding. Because observation without a response strategy is incomplete. Observe patterns calmly, not with anxiety, not with the activated hypervigilance that turns every ambiguous signal into confirmed evidence. Calmly, with the clear-eyed attention of a person who is committed to seeing what is actually there, rather than what they hope or fear is there. Give the patterns enough time to establish themselves. Single events are data points. Patterns are conclusions. Address the concerns directly. When the pattern is sufficiently established that it warrants a conversation, when you have observed enough to be genuinely concerned rather than merely uncertain, Have the conversation, not as an accusation, as a genuine expression of what you have observed and what you need clarity about. The response to that conversation is itself significant data. The person who is genuinely not doing what you fear responds with genuine engagement. The person who is managing the situation responds with deflection, with counter accusation, with the specific strategies designed to make your concern seem like the problem. Do not accuse without evidence. The accusation made without sufficient evidence damages your position regardless of whether it is ultimately correct. If you are wrong, you have created a conflict based on unfounded suspicion. If you are right but cannot demonstrate it, you have given the other person the opportunity to manage the situation rather than address it honestly. Hold your position, gather clarity, act from a position of genuine knowledge rather than reactive anxiety. Watch reactions to accountability. When you raise a concern, the reaction tells you more than the words. The person who is genuinely innocent engages genuinely with your concern, wants to understand it, wants to address it, experiences your worry as something that matters because you matter. The person who is managing a situation experiences your concern as a threat to be neutralized. Watch the quality of the engagement, not just the content of what is said. Be willing to walk. This is the final rule and the one that determines whether all the others have real weight. The willingness to leave. Genuine, not performed, not used as a threat, but as the honest expression of your actual standard, is the quality that gives every other element of your response its authority. The man who will not leave, regardless of what he discovers, has communicated that his standards are not binding. And standards that are not binding are not really standards. Strength is clarity, not paranoia. That is the distinction. The paranoid man is driven by anxiety, by the fear of betrayal that shapes his interpretation of every ambiguous signal toward the most threatening reading. The clear man is driven by genuine observation, by the commitment to see what is actually there and respond to it accurately. Build the second. It serves you in every relationship, in every circumstance. Now the final layer. Sometimes the relationship is fading, not betraying. This matters. Not every behavioral shift that resembles the 6 signs is evidence of infidelity. Sometimes a relationship is simply ending. The emotional investment diminishing not because it is being redirected toward another person, but because it is genuinely declining. The distance, the reduced warmth, the emotional withdrawal. These can be the expressions of a relationship that has run its natural course as much as they can be the signals of active betrayal. The distinction matters because the appropriate response is different. Active betrayal requires a direct reckoning with what has happened, with what it means for the relationship going forward, with whether trust can be rebuilt or whether the relationship has become unsustainable. A relationship that is simply fading requires a different kind of honesty about whether both people are genuinely still invested, whether there's something worth rebuilding, whether the decline is addressable or whether it reflects something more fundamental. Fear of losing versus accepting reality. That is the binary. The man who is driven primarily by fear of losing the relationship is likely to rationalize the signs, to accept insufficient reassurances, to tolerate a situation that his own clear-eyed assessment would tell him is not acceptable. The man who is committed to accepting reality, to seeing clearly what is actually happening and responding to it on those terms, is in a position to make genuine choices rather than to be managed by his fear. Clarity is better than denial. This is the statement. The painful clarity of knowing what is actually happening is more manageable than the chronic dissonance of knowing something is wrong while refusing to look at it directly. Denial is not protection, it is delayed pain with interest. Here is the ending. Two options. You can ignore the signs and hope, can choose the comfortable interpretation of every ambiguous signal, can accept the surface reassurances without examining whether the behavioral pattern beneath them supports them, can continue in a situation that your own felt sense is telling you requires attention. Many men do this. The outcome is familiar, or you can observe calmly and act decisively. You can give yourself the genuine protection of clear, honest attention to what your relationship is actually showing you, not what you hope it is showing you, not what you fear it is showing you, but what the behavioral patterns observed over time with genuine attention actually indicate. And you can respond to what you see with the calm decisiveness of a man who respects himself enough to require clarity. Healthy relationships feel secure, not perfect, not without friction or difficulty or the ordinary challenges of two people building a shared life, but secure, characterized by a fundamental sense that you are genuinely chosen, that your partner is genuinely invested, that the warmth and attention and commitment you experience are expressions of something real, rather than performances of something that has already ended internally. If you constantly feel confusion, if the experience of being in your relationship is characterized by a chronic uncertainty about where you actually stand, something needs attention, not paranoia. Attention. Trust patterns, communicate clearly. Respect yourself enough to leave if needed. These are not complex instructions, but they require something that is genuinely difficult: the willingness to see clearly, to say what you see, and to act on what you know. Most men have the capacity, fewer develop the habit. Patterns over promises, always. The promise is what someone wants you to believe. The pattern is what they actually are. Learn to read the pattern and then trust what you read.